Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
I'm Whitney, host of the Real Estate Syndication Show. Every day, I'm interviewing experts that will help you to successfully invest in or grow your syndication business. Hit the like and subscribe button so you'll be on track to learn from the best in the industry. This is your daily Real Estate Syndication Show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Mike Stohler. He's a co-founder of Gateway Private Equity Group, which is a hotel real estate investment firm. When the multifamily market shifted in 2016, Mike pivoted into hotel investments for high returns and better value add opportunities. As a result of the global pandemic, hotels are currently considered unloved assets, which Mike believes is exactly why now is the right time to look at hotels as an investment opportunity. You know, we don't have too many people on the show who are focused on hotels. So I like shows like this where we're talking to syndicators, to operators who are doing big deals, but it may be in a different asset class that you're not as familiar with. So I like exposing you to those things. And he does that today. He goes to, hotels versus multifamily and some things that he likes about hotels. He still likes multifamily as well. He's done a lot of multifamily also, but his focus right now is hotels. And he goes through numerous reasons why he likes hotels right now over multifamily, even things that he learned through COVID, things he has, just the pandemic has taught him about how to buy hotels. That's interesting and how he's moving forward in that as well. And so I know today you're going to learn a lot. Mike, welcome to the show. Pleasure to meet you personally. I can't believe we've not met before now, actually. But pleasure to meet you now. It's interesting, just a few moments that we've had before we started recording, just to learn a little bit about what you're up to. And so looking forward to this. But share a little bit of that with the listeners. Share a little bit about your focus right now, your real estate business, maybe some things you're working on, and we'll dive in.
Sure. Thank you, Whitney. I transitioned from multifamily to hotels about 4 or 5 years ago, just because of the cap rates. I didn't like the cap rates in multifamily, and the hotels are still, they're 9, 10 plus cap rates. So we're focusing on those. And wow, I bought my last hotel in November of 19, right before what hit, so it's been a lesson, many lessons that I've learned on running hotels and keeping them open during COVID. But I still strongly believe in hotels, and we're still going to invest in hotels. We're getting ready to open up a fund. And the reason why we're doing a fund instead of a syndication is those hotels that are not going to make it because of COVID. And most of those, it's because they had maybe the CMBS loans, which is a market-based loan, and they could not get any of the help. So the owners, they could be very, very good hotels, but because the lender's not willing to work with them, they're not able to survive. And those are going on auction. They're going to be turned over to the company. So you need an open fund. You need that money to be able to pounce on those opportunities. And that's why we're doing an open fund instead of regular syndication.
Yeah. No, I can relate to that. We launched a fund as well. It definitely gives you a lot of buying power, right? Mm-hmm. When that seller or whoever knows that you got that balance sheet there, it's you're a different player, at that point, in the race. So, I want you to speak to, and I'm sure you get this question often, and you said it before we started. I mean, not many people have many hotel experts right on their show that are syndicating hotels. And so I want you to speak to that some to the listeners, just the current market of hotels, and maybe speak to some differences that may be misunderstood, between multifamily and hotels, and then just the current market around hotels.
Sure. Yeah. First question is one that I get a lot, is the transition from multifamily to hotels. You have people that are very strong multifamily lovers, and then you have your hotel group, and not a lot of people did both. So the differences that I've learned, and the reason why I like hotels is hotels, I get to set I'm going to use rent. I'm going to use some multifamily lingo, I get to choose my rent every day. I get to change it. I get to position my rent depending on the market. A concert comes into town, bam, I'm $60 higher for that night. The NFL comes into town, bam, I'm $100. Super Bowl is going to be in, I'm going to be a lot higher. But then, I'm in Arizona, so during the summer, I get to bring it down a little bit lower to keep people coming in. So I get to change it every day, but I also get my renters change every day. So instead of, if you have a 100-room multifamily, and it's 100% full, you have 6-month or 12-month leases, and it doesn't change unless you have turnover. With a 100-room hotel, I get, and let's just say, for conversation, that it's full every day. I get new renters every day at different rates. So the compounding of the numbers on a monthly and yearly basis is a lot larger in hotels. So we're grossing a lot more than multifamily. Another thing that is really good about when you get in hotels is hotels are real estate and a business. Okay, so I own a small business. I own a flagged hotel, which means it has a franchise attached to it. I own a Marriott hotel that happens to sit on real estate. So I have an appreciating land mass, and I have a business that appreciates, and I can then move and work on the expenses and the revenue. The other thing is, because it's a business, I'm eligible for, during COVID, this last time, it's an SBA, small business type of a loan. So I was able to get the PPP in order to pay my employees in order to keep them employed. And I was also able to get the EIDL, which is the disaster loan recovery, in order to keep the hotels afloat and keep them going. So that's another thing that is really good. It is a business. So the government sees me as a business, but I also have that real estate on top. That's it. That's a big difference. Another thing, with multifamily, someone moves out, your expense to clean and get that rent ready again is a lot higher for you and me. You're having to probably repaint, clean the carpets. You're just doing a lot of things. I have experts that work 8 hours a day, and all they do is clean rooms. And within 15 minutes, someone moves out, and boom, we can have someone else at a new rate go right in. So it's a lot more efficient, and with the costs. And some of those are the things. It's the biggest difference is you have to learn how to run a business instead of just multifamily, which is real estate and landlord tenant laws and things like that. So the biggest thing that I tell people, don't jump into hotels, because now you're running an actual business with 15 to 20 plus employees. So, so it is a lot more different, but those are some of the things. On your second point with the market right now, what I found out during COVID, everyone's like, oh my God, COVID. Well, depending on where you live, the hotels were hit a little bit different. In real estate, you need to be in a state. And I'm not going to get into politics, this is just state, local government, things like that. Sure. You need to be in a landlord friendly state, or with me in hotels, you need to be in a small business friendly state. And here in Arizona and some of the other places, hotels were a necessity. We did not have to shut down. It was an essential business. You get into a lot of states where everything shut down. There was no essential. So we got lucky, and it taught me that, okay, when I get into new hotels, I need to actually pay attention to this other type of segment. How friendly is that state going to be to me? I'm going to be paying all these taxes to them, but do they actually care about me? So that is a big thing that I've learned during COVID. And COVID did affect hotels. I mean, it was a lot worse than 2007, 2008, but none of my hotels closed down. And I did learn what hotels really, really performed and which ones did not.
What would you elaborate on that? Like
Mhm.
some things you learned there. And so one thing, you were talking about it, before we started recording, and I thought it was such a great point. It's like when bad things happen, you can stress out, or it can be an opportunity to learn, right, and become better.
Mhm.
And I just appreciate that. You mentioned like military experience, and it's just,
Mhm.
there's no reason to stress out about it. Let's figure out a way to make it happen, right, and get through this. And sounds like
Mhm.
that's what you did, Mike. But speak to that a little bit. Yeah, I mean, what happened, things you learned, just through
Mhm.
COVID, maybe what you would do different now in buying a hotel versus, what you would have done 2 years ago.
Yeah, great question. What I learned during COVID is, the hotels that I thought were pre-COVID that would have done really, really well are the ones in business parks. I have a fancy Radisson right in a business park where, it's a tech park. Wow. Which one did the worst during COVID? It was that one, because there was no business travel and it relied on business people. The ones that did fantastic are my limited service, which means free breakfast, free Wi-Fi, get out. It's basically the limited service right off a highway outside of a major metro area. Because during COVID, no one wanted to stay in the big city. And because nobody was air traveling, they're still traveling, but they were going via the highway system, via RVs, via, the cars. So I learned that the ones right off an exit, major highway, but outside of a major metro, in a small town outside, and the ones that had truck driver parking, this is the blue collar of the blue collar limited service hotels. They're ones that I wasn't even thinking of. I'm thinking, man, I want these big fancy bars and restaurants and all this sort of stuff. Nope. Free breakfast, free Wi-Fi, class B, hotel that is just a simple one. Because, and also what I learned is what did not stop during COVID. What was the most essential was the truck drivers, the emergency crews, and they were always traveling. And if I could sit there and say, okay, I need to move to where, before I didn't really go after that type of commercial business, man, I went head on and made sure that every single one of those truck drivers stayed at that hotel. And that hotel is actually going to probably exceed 2019 numbers this year.
Wow.
And it's fantastic. And so that's what I learned in going on is it's like going after, do you eventually want to get that A-class multifamily? Yeah, if you want 0.5% cap rate, things like that. But man, those B minuses, the C pluses all day long, we call those the lunch pail Joe type of living quarters. And, they don't ask for much, just clean, and it's at a price point that they love. And those are the ones that we're going to focus on. Extended stay did also very, very well. So we'll look at extended stay, because when people are caring for people, or a loved one was in the hospital and the family needed extended stay, or for the nurses and the doctors that couldn't go home because they're on the front line, they stayed at extended stay hotels.
Do you think that's changed your focus, or maybe narrowed your focus to those specific hotels you're talking about now, that are that demographic or location, that type of service? So moving forward, like you're going to be very focused on those types of brands and hotels.
It is, because, in the past, what we do when we look at hotels, and it's different from multifamily, we look at drivers. What is driving someone to your hotel? Okay. In the past, you say, hey, I want a hotel at a ski resort. I want a hotel next to a university. Well, What if no one's skiing and no one's going to college? Okay, now you're shut down. So something else that I'm thinking, that I learned is you need multiple drivers. If you're close to a university, that's great, but how close are you to the highway? How close are to a hospital? What other reasons are people going to come and visit your hotel in that city? So what we did is we found out that going forward, there has to be 3 or more drivers. And it's kind of like diversifying in the stock market, right? In case your stocks go down, you have your real estate, then you have your mutual funds, you have different drivers, different diversifications. And we want that in the hotels now, so that if another pandemic hit, it's okay. I still have truck driver parking, but if there is no pandemic, wow, okay, I have truck driver parking, plus it's close to the university, plus it's close to maybe a concert place. So there's multiple reasons for people to come in, and that's what's important now. You don't want that to be that lone hotel in a ski resort, and that's your only reason.
Makes so much sense. Yeah, the ski resort being your only source of people coming to stay. That makes so much sense. What about, you spoke to, and I agree with this as well. You talk about like being in a friendly state, or landlord friendly or business friendly. How do you figure that out? How do you judge that? Or just, what information do you look at, just so the listener can better understand when they're thinking about different locations? What do you find? What do you look for?
Yeah, number one, everyone just throw out all newscasts, throw out all media, social media. You can't get the truth, and on any side. But when you look at states, when you look at governors, it's all public record. Everyone knows and everyone can see that certain states completely shut down. And what's so great in the hotel space is I have different groups that are really big. AHOA, AHLA, there are these different lobbying, different groups that are very big, and they come out with reports, Southwest, Southeast, all different regions. And then I can go in and say, look at California, look at Oregon, look at Georgia, look at Texas, and who's doing what. And I can go through, and we also have what's called the STAR report, which are reports that I can sit there and look at all the comp sets in any state and any level and any type of hotel, and look at how they did, and then the percentages of who shut down. And if I go to a region, it's like, wow, there wasn't a single hotel open, in 3 months. And then I can go into public record and I can look at the governor and find out, did they actually have a statement that said everyone shuts down? So those are the ways that we can look. And it's not that hard to see, and even ones that are wanting to shut down again, and every indication is that COVID is starting to wane. There's this 2-month period that COVID keeps jumping around, but now we're it's starting to go down again. But there's some cities that are wanting to still lock down, and you can see it. It's kind of obvious which ones did that. And it's a certain areas, certain ones, and the ones that are harder that we, sometime in the Midwest, you can't get maybe a lot of information, but you can go into the public reports and find out, and the different reports that I can get in the hotels to see what the governors did and what they voted on as far as the state.
I think that's an interesting point. Like, you can look back, right? You can see what happened during that time, and think about how the businesses were affected during the pandemic. And that's going to share a lot with you of how things would move forward, right?
Yeah.
During something like that. Well, knowing what you know now, Mike, about hotels, and you're in multifamily, you got, a lot of experience, in real estate and syndicating. What would you have done different? If you had to start back over in real estate or commercial real estate, would you have gone directly in hotels, or would you, what are your thoughts about, I don't know, just knowing what you know now, how you would have done it?
Well, yeah, one of the, it's an interesting question. One of the things that I hate doing is looking back on my life and knowing how much more money I would have made, if I had done something or not. But look, I talk about hotels and I love hotels, but I also do love multifamily. I've owned or operated over 1,300 units, and I will eventually get back into multifamily, but it's just too saturated, right? But man, if I'd have known I had a large apartment complex here in Arizona, and I thought it was like, man, I'm going to make $860,000 in 10 months on this thing because someone just kept coming at me. And finally I was like, man, I can't pass it up. Well, I could have made about $2.5 million if I had it right now, So you look back at some of the deals, and I would tell your listeners, don't get too quick with flipping and trying to go and for bigger, better things like that. It's sometimes a little bit of patience. If you have a good property, maybe hold on to it. And I was so I had the mindset of, man, I want to sell it so I get into something bigger. Well, I could have kept it and opened a syndication or a fund and bought that bigger thing. Now I'd had both. So don't be afraid to use other people's money, and that maybe is the biggest thing. If I didn't really know in my younger years about the syndications, the fund, so I thought, okay, well, I need to keep this, sell it, 3 years later, buy something bigger. I wish I'd gotten into syndications, a lot sooner.
I'm glad you said that, right? A perfect show for that statement right there. But wish he had gotten syndications earlier. And yeah, we can second guess ourselves all day long, right? What if we'd have done this or whatever, but ultimately, yeah, have to make the best decision you can at that time and go with it. Right. But often, yeah, slow is fast, right?
Slow is fast. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That is the perfect statement. And, I would also tell your listeners, don't be scared to syndicate. If it's a new, everyone's like, oh, I don't want to lose anyone's money. It's like, well, then don't.
That's right.
Do whatever you can to keep it going. And another thing is, I wish I had gotten some really good mentors earlier. That's very, very important, folks. And if the way I jumped into hotels, I didn't know anything about hotels, but what I did was, because I read these books, because I had a mentor, he told me the fact that, hey, I can grab somebody that has 20 years experience in the hotel business, bring him on without pay, well, management fee, he's running the operations, but I gave him a portion of, the ownership, because I wanted him to, his group to be accountable. So that's another way you can do this. Even if you have the money, it's like, yeah, I had, a couple $1 million put down on a hotel, but okay, I don't know anything about it. Get someone and say, hey, look, you run it. I'll give you 5% management fee, but I'll give you a percentage of the actual ownership. And then you can learn how to do it and have them as a mentor. And that allowed me to go and grow. So that's another way of doing it.
That's a great point right there. Yeah, partner with experts, no doubt about it. Well, what about a way, Mike, that you've recently improved your business that we could apply to ours?
It's what happened is, the only way that I was able to grow and focus on, especially during COVID, is the use of, and I know Whitney, your group does it too, is the virtual assistants. At some point in everyone's real estate investing career, you're going to sit there and say, in order to grow, I need to delegate. And it's hard, because in order to make money, you need to spend money, and you need to spend money on experts. You need to concentrate on your unique ability. And for me, it's finding things. It's not paying bills. It's not taking phone calls at 2 o'clock in the morning because something got stuck in the toilet, things like that. So I delegated those things out. And that, to me, was the biggest leap forward, because when you use the virtual assistants, it's a lot less. You're paying them half of what you're paying a U.S. citizen, but there's no withholdings, there's no taxes, there's no 1099, so it just saved me a lot of money, and it allowed me to do that. So that's the biggest thing that changed my life, and I think would change your listeners' life is, don't think that you have to hire someone that may or may not show up for work. Now it's, we're running into that issue in the United States, of finding people, but there are college educated people around the world that want to work for you.
Yeah, could not agree more. The listeners have heard me talk about it so many times. I'm glad you're just a great example of that too. Mm-hmm. If you have any kind of business, you need a virtual assistant at the minimum, at the least, right? Oh my goodness. Yeah. So helpful. We have an amazing team of VAs that work full time. I mean, many, that are just so loyal but to get started, oftentimes, like you said, people say, I don't want somebody full time. I don't have that much for somebody. Well, you can hire somebody 2 hours a week, to get started. So it's great. What about, Mike, your best source for meeting new investors right now?
I'm a golf fanatic. So, there's a couple of things. I golf and everyone's talking, right? You buy them a beer. Hey, what do you do for a living? What do I do for a living? And you meet and you talk and things like that. So I've actually met several investors on the golf course. Another thing is, get out there and be involved in charities. I'm on the board of 3 different charities. I'm a Rotarian. I'm probably the youngest Rotarian. I'm joking. Everyone thinks that people that are part of Rotary are all 80 years old and things like that. But get involved in charities, because there's people with money that are involved in charities, and you see that, wow, in my Rotary group, there's a lot of attorneys, a lot of business owners. There's just a lot of marketing people, and you can use them in different things. But I've picked up a lot of investors that way, because you get to know them and they trust you, and that's probably my 2 biggest. I joined a country club. I'm not saying you guys need to do that now, but when you do, now you're in the same group of people, and they're like, Mike, it's like, do you ever work? You're golfing on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I'm like, I get
this is my work.
This is my work. I'm actually working with, on you right now, but it opens up a conversation, and they just asked what I did for a living, because they see me. I'm not old enough to retire, but they see me that I'm golfing during the week. Then I have to tell them, it's like, I work all the freaking time. I just get to choose when and where I work.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah. I mean, you join the country club, you golf a lot. I am not a golfer. Sometimes I think it's unfortunate for that reason right there, but it's still worked out in other ways. But what are some daily habits that you are disciplined about, Mike, that have helped you achieve this level of success?
Yeah, that is very, very important. With one of my mentors, had me do what's called a default calendar. Okay. Every morning, every day, I have a calendar that does not, I'm not saying it does not change, but I try not to have it change. Monday morning, 8 o'clock, I do this. 8:30, I do this. 9 o'clock, I do this. It is a default calendar, and they are appointments that I set. And one of those appointments is, Tuesday at 8:30 or 8 o'clock, you work out. And the same thing, but it's a calendar that it does not change. My working out, my doing a lot of things that are not business are still on my calendar. Okay, they're appointments. 8 o'clock, I don't check emails until 10 o'clock on Mondays or 10 o'clock on Tuesdays. I don't allow myself, but then I only allow myself a half hour, because then you just start, the whole world can collapse once you go down that rabbit hole. But that's really the biggest thing is once you start working for yourself, it's so easy. oh, wow, I just spent 2 hours on Facebook. Oh my God, or some other social media. Be disciplined, have that default calendar. It's hard working for yourself and because you're your own boss. If you don't have a boss that kicks your butt because you're slacking off, then you're going to slack off and you're not going to be successful. So get that default calendar and it doesn't change.
Love that. So yeah, these are the most important things that have to get done every day, and put it on the calendar, right? Mm-hmm. It's different when you can see it and you know that time is coming up to do something else. I think it's interesting. You said 30 minutes for email. I think that probably pushes you to get through a bunch of email really fast too.
It does. And then you flag them. And then what happens is I have another area of time in that calendar to deal with this hotel and deal with this hotel, or I have, these, and then I flag those emails and boom, okay, the quality in, go right into those emails and just, now I have a 2-hour block that I can do this and just kind of, any fires, anything like that. And then the other hotel, and then the other stuff, but it keeps me from going insane. And instead of, like running around at the very beginning, I was a chicken with the head cut off, I was like, oh no, I was just, and you have to have that discipline. And it comes from the military, it comes from being a pilot. It comes from, I have to have that structure, and that checklist. And if you have a checklist for your life every day, then you'll actually be successful because you're going to be a lot more focused on working on your business or delegating or doing things instead of just willy-nilly,
Yeah, it sounds like you almost use your calendar as a checklist, right? You put these things on there, and it's good. I appreciate you elaborating on that too. And that's great stuff. Time management is so important. Mm-hmm. It's always a struggle, right? I mean, for almost all of us, unless you are just working on it all the time. I know I am. It's all my assistant and I are always thinking about my calendar and how to better utilize my time. And what about how do you like to give back?
Yeah, great question. I alluded to it earlier. I'm on the board of several charities. I love giving back. I've been blessed with my life. I've been married 24 years, a wonderful woman, it's, 3 dogs, I mean, it's like, I will never complain. You can, but it doesn't do any good. I give back by me being a veteran. I'm on some military boards, with some charities, and it's very, very, very important for everyone to give back, whether it's through church, through social services, through anything. It's very important. It makes you feel good. It's like, okay, what? I want to make more money so I can give more money away. And when I see people crying and seeing people that are so thankful on just even a small part of something that I did, through a charity, it's just, you get a lot of dust in your eyes. You're not crying. It's very, there are a lot of allergies all of a sudden that happen, and it's just wonderful. But that's the biggest thing is I make sure that I give back in time, but also money. Because I'm so busy during the day that a lot of times I can't go and paint things or build things, and but I give the money, and make sure you do.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Mike, and I appreciate your time today. I mean, just giving back to us and really sharing like why you love hotels too, and why you transitioned to hotels, some differences between multifamily and hotels that maybe listeners hadn't thought about, but even the business component, that maybe some people aren't aware of, that maybe, I mean, multifamily is a business as well, but it's different. It's a very different type of business, isn't it? And different clients and things like that, like you're talking about, they change every day. And so it's a different operation. For sure. But even things through COVID that you learned, and I mean, just sharing lots of things in the friendly state, making sure that we're in a friendly business state as well. Just many great tips. How can the listeners learn about you, and where can they find you?
Sure. Website is my company's Gateway Private Equity Group, and we shorten it Gateway PE. And you can find us at gatewaype.com. everyone join with LinkedIn. If you have any questions, I'm usually on LinkedIn, depending on my schedule, right? My calendar. I allow myself sometimes on LinkedIn. If you have any questions, like me there, it's under Michael Stohler. Let everyone know that you're on this. Let me know that you're on this and listen to this podcast, and I'll answer any of the questions you guys have. And then I also have a podcast. If you're interested, it's called The Richer Geek. The Richer Geek podcast, because we're all geeks and we all want to get a little richer, right?
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by LifeBridge Capital. LifeBridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. LifeBridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.